I'm 28M, starting to fall for my 24F wife, and am unsure how to proceed. 10-year new update. Life can take unexpected turns, and sometimes it leads us down paths we never anticipated. My story begins 4 years ago when I faced the unimaginable loss of my wife during childbirth. I was deployed at the time, and when I returned home, I felt utterly devastated. My 2 young sons, now 6 and 4, became my world, but the weight of grief was heavy. In my search for support, I reached out to Cass, the sister of one of my Marine buddies. She had been a friend of my late wife, though not particularly close. Cass was just 20 years old and had recently escaped an abusive relationship, leaving her with significant debt. She agreed to help me with the boys in exchange for a place to stay, and I was grateful for her willingness to step in. In those early weeks, Cass proved to be a godsend. She took care of the house, cooked meals, and kept our little family together. However, I soon learned that she was struggling with her own health issues, likely stemming from the trauma of her past. I had good insurance, and I wanted to help her get the care she needed. We decided to marry, but with the understanding that our relationship would remain platonic. We both had our burdens to bear, and this arrangement seemed to work for us. Fast forward 3 years, and our lives had transformed in ways I never expected. Cass became an integral part of our family. She not only took care of the household, but also became a loving figure to my sons. She spoke of their mother fondly, shared stories, and even taught them how to read. My 4-year-old sometimes called her mommy, but she gently reminded him that she was Cass, and their mother was an angel watching over them. As time passed, I began to notice changes in my feelings towards Cass. She was not just a caretaker, she was becoming someone I deeply cared for. I found myself drawn to her in ways I hadn't anticipated. Her laughter, her kindness, and the way she looked at me with warmth began to stir something within me. I started to feel guilty about these feelings, as if I was betraying my late wife's memory. One evening, after a long day, I almost kissed Cass while we were putting the boys to bed. I hesitated, unsure of how to navigate this new territory. I wanted to be close to her, to hold her, but I feared what that might mean for both of us. I often reflected on a quote from a book I loved, which suggested that no one could replace a lost love. Yet as days went by, I found myself thinking more about Cass and less about my late wife. This internal struggle became increasingly difficult. I wanted to explore the possibility of a romantic relationship with Cass, but I didn't know how to approach the subject. I considered asking her to dinner, just the 2 of us, to see where things might lead. But what if she wasn't interested? What if I scared her away? One day, after she had a particularly tough time with the boys, I surprised her with her favorite flowers. Her reaction was heartwarming. She beamed with joy and gave me a lingering hug, followed by a quick kiss on the lips. That moment left me stunned and hopeful. What did it mean? Did she feel the same way? After wrestling with my emotions and seeking advice from friends online, I finally decided to take a leap of faith. I made a reservation at her favorite restaurant and arranged for her brother to babysit the boys. I wanted to create a safe space for us to talk, to explore what was blossoming between us. As I prepared for that dinner, I felt a mix of excitement and anxiety. I knew that whatever happened, this was a step towards healing for both of us. I was ready to embrace the possibility of love again, even if it meant facing my fears and uncertainties head-on. In the end, life is about taking chances, and sometimes the most beautiful connections can emerge from the most unexpected circumstances. I was ready to see where this journey with Cass would lead us, and I hoped she would be willing to join me on this new path. It was a beautiful morning, and I had just paid off my wife's debt. As I stared at the check, a mix of excitement and nerves bubbled inside me. Next week marked our 3-year anniversary, and I had a plan to finally express my feelings for her. I decided that dessert would be the perfect moment to tell her I loved her. I was a bundle of nerves, but I knew I had to go through with it. As the day approached, I couldn't help but feel the weight of anticipation. I promised everyone that I would keep them updated, and I was ready to share my journey. When the big night arrived, things started off a bit chaotic. Our younger son had a minor scare after claiming he ate what he called a giant fuzzy spider. My wife, Cass, was ready to rush him to the hospital, even though he was perfectly fine. Thankfully, her brother Joe stepped in and insisted on taking care of it, which allowed us to head out for our special dinner. We arrived at the restaurant early, and Cass ordered a glass of wine. This was surprising since she hadn't been drinking much since her breakup with her ex. I thought it was a good sign, a celebration of sorts. However, as we made small talk, I could feel the tension in the air. I knew I had to tell her how I felt, but the moment felt forced. Before our entrees arrived, I took a deep breath and said I had something important to discuss. To my shock, Cass responded with a frown, saying she already knew what I was going to say. Apparently, Joe had spilled the beans, telling her that I wanted to take her out to discuss my feelings for another girl. My heart sank. Joe had set me up for what felt like the most dramatic pickup line ever. As we sat there, I explained that I had developed feelings for someone, but I didn't want it to ruin what we had. To my surprise, Cass said it wouldn't mess anything up, and that she still loved our family. It was then that I realized I needed to clarify my feelings. I leaned in and confidently declared, because I'm already on a date with her. Cass looked at me with a mix of disbelief and amusement, and then she asked, "Really?" I nodded, pouring my heart out. I told her how much I cared for her and how I had fallen in love with her. Her response was priceless. In a moment of spontaneity, I leaned across the table and kissed her, accidentally spilling her wine in the process, but neither of us cared. We shared a sweet kiss, and after dinner, we decided to grab ice cream and continued to enjoy each other's company, stealing kisses along the way. When we got home, Joe was lounging on our couch, watching a dating show with a grin that could light up a room. Cass ran in, playfully scolding him for ruining the moment, but we all burst into laughter. Joe had unknowingly played a pivotal role in our love story. After a delightful evening filled with laughter and affection, I carried Cass to our room, where we snuggled and kissed for what felt like hours. It was pure bliss. At one point, our youngest son wandered in, claiming he had a nightmare and brought his puppy for comfort. We welcomed them in, and it was a heartwarming scene that made everything feel right. The next morning, I woke up early to make breakfast for everyone, feeling grateful for the love we had just acknowledged. I was about to head out to kiss my wife goodbye and ask my boss for some time off to spend with her while the boys were at school. As I reflected on the whirlwind of emotions and events, I couldn't help but feel thankful for the support I had received from everyone. I promised to keep them updated on our journey, even if I had lost the receipt from our dinner. But one thing was for sure. I was committed to proving that I would always deliver on my promises. And so, our story continued, filled with love, laughter, and the occasional chaos that comes with family life. Life has a way of throwing unexpected challenges our way, and sometimes those challenges lead us to places we never imagined we would go. My journey began in a place of grief and necessity, but it has transformed into a story of love and resilience. Several years ago, I lost my first wife while I was deployed. It was a devastating blow, and I found myself struggling to cope with the loss. During this difficult time, I had 2 young sons to care for, and I was overwhelmed. That's when Cass entered my life. She was a friend who stepped in to help take care of my children and manage our home while I was grieving. Cass was dealing with her own challenges, having suffered from past domestic abuse that left her in need of medical care and insurance. In a moment of desperation, I made the decision to marry her, not out of love, but to provide her with the support she needed. It was a marriage of convenience, but as time went on, something unexpected happened. I began to develop feelings for her. At first, I was terrified of scaring her away or making her feel uncomfortable, but with encouragement from friends and even some wise voices on the internet, I decided to take the plunge. To my surprise, Cass reciprocated those feelings, and we began dating in earnest. It was a bit strange at first, explaining our evolving relationship to friends and family, but most of them had already caught on. Even my son seemed to sense the shift, acting as if nothing had changed, which made me chuckle. However, life threw us another curveball. One evening, I came home to find Cass in a state of distress. Dinner was burnt, which was unusual for her, and she had been drinking a little more than usual. Concerned, I asked her what was wrong. That's when she revealed that her ex-boyfriend had been released from prison. I was taken aback. Cass had been assured that he would be incarcerated for a long time, and she had been too afraid to testify against him during his parole hearing. The reality of the situation hit hard. She felt guilt-ridden and scared, and I knew I had to do everything in my power to protect her. I took immediate action, contacting my lawyer about filing a restraining order. I wanted to ensure that Cass felt safe and secure in our home. I promised her that I would be there for her, taking off work to keep her company and making sure she had the support she needed. As time passed, Cass showed incredible bravery. When her ex came to our door, she stood her ground and told him to leave. It was a pivotal moment for both of us. We managed to secure an order of protection against him, and he eventually moved away, giving us the space we needed to heal. Fast forward to now, and life has taken a beautiful turn. Cass and I have grown closer than I ever thought possible. We finally consummated our marriage, and the bond we share is stronger than ever. Our sons are thriving, and Cass has found a fulfilling job, although I worry she's working too much overtime. The most exciting news? We're expecting our first child together in February. It's a girl, and we couldn't be more thrilled. Reflecting on this journey, I realize how far we've come. What started as a marriage of necessity has blossomed into a loving partnership. Life is unpredictable, but sometimes the most beautiful stories emerge from the most challenging circumstances. I'm grateful for every moment, and I look forward to what the future holds for our growing family. Thank you for following along on this journey. I promise to keep you updated as we navigate this new chapter together. Cheers to love, resilience, and the unexpected paths that lead us home. It's been quite a journey for me, and I want to share my story about love, loss, and rediscovery. I'm a 28-year-old man, and I've been married for almost 15 years. My wife, Cass, and I have had our ups and downs, but lately, I've found myself falling for her all over again. Let's rewind a bit. When we first got married, everything felt perfect. We were young, full of dreams, and eager to build a life together. Over the years, we welcomed 3 beautiful children into our family. Our youngest, Therese, was born after a challenging pregnancy, but she came into the world healthy and happy. She's been a joy, and it's heartwarming to see how her older brothers dote on her, even if their attempts to help can be a bit overwhelming at times. Life continued, and while we were busy raising our kids, things started to change. I left the military and transitioned to a civilian job, while Cass finished her education and climbed the career ladder. We were proud of each other's accomplishments, but somewhere along the way, we began to drift apart. The loss of Cass's brother, who was also my friend, hit us hard. He struggled with his demons for years, and his passing left a void in our lives. We found ourselves in a gray space, emotionally distant, and focused more on the daily grind of parenting than on each other. Conversations became mundane. Bills, chores, and the kids dominated our discussions. The spark that once ignited our relationship seemed to flicker out. After some time, I realized that I needed a change. I asked for a separation, hoping it would help us both find happiness again. Cass was understandably devastated. I didn't cheat on her, but I did find myself confiding in a friend, a woman I spoke to more than I did with Cass. It was never anything physical, but I recognized that I was seeking emotional connection elsewhere, which only complicated things further. As we separated, my relationship with our older boys suffered. They stopped coming over, and I felt the weight of their disappointment. Meanwhile, Cass began seeing someone else, which was a bitter pill to swallow. I found myself in a dark place, grappling with regret and loneliness. I turned to drinking, trying to cope with the pain of losing my family and the life I once knew. But then, something shifted. I decided to quit drinking and focus on rebuilding my life. I started reaching out to my kids, and slowly, they began to come over more frequently. My second oldest even joined them occasionally. I knew I had to make things right, not just for myself, but for them as well. As I worked on myself, I also began to reflect on my relationship with Cass. I realized that despite everything, I still loved her deeply. I reached out to her, jokingly suggesting we could spend Valentine's Day together since she didn't have plans. To my surprise, she was open to the idea. Now we're in a place where we can communicate more openly. We're both in therapy, working through our individual struggles, and I'm hopeful about what the future holds for us. I've learned that love can evolve, and sometimes it takes stepping back to truly appreciate what you have. As I navigate this new chapter, I'm reminded that relationships require effort, understanding, and a willingness to grow together. I'm excited to see where this journey takes us, and I'm committed to nurturing the love that brought us together in the first place. Life is unpredictable, but I believe that with patience and dedication, we can find our way back to each other, stronger than before. I've been on quite a journey lately, and it's led me to some profound realizations about my life and my relationships. At 28 years old, I find myself in a complicated situation with my wife, who is 24. We've been through a lot together, and now, as I've taken steps to improve myself, I'm starting to fall for her all over again. For a while, I was caught in a cycle of binge drinking. I wouldn't say I was a full-blown alcoholic, but my habits were definitely unhealthy. Just a month ago, I decided to get sober, and it's been a game changer. I've cleared my head and gained a fresh perspective on everything, especially my relationship with my wife. I've noticed a significant change in her as well. She seems genuinely happier now, even after her recent breakup with her girlfriend. It makes me wonder if I was holding her back during our time together. A few months ago, she mentioned that she wasn't interested in filing for divorce. She even said she would appreciate a heads up if I ever decided to take that step, indicating she would be willing to work with me. The thought of divorce is daunting. I don't want to be separated from her or our kids, and living alone in this apartment feels like a constant reminder of what I'm missing. I've been contemplating how to approach her about my feelings. It's not as simple as just taking her out for dinner and confessing everything. I've considered suggesting couples counseling, but every time I think about asking her, I hesitate. The fear of her saying no is overwhelming. Now that she's single and I'm sober, I feel like there's a chance for us to reconnect. But what if she doesn't feel the same way? The thought of being crushed by her rejection is daunting. I know I need to be brave and take that step, but it's easier said than done. As I navigate these feelings, I'm hopeful that with time and open communication, we can find our way back to each other. I just need to muster the courage to reach out and see if she's willing to explore this new chapter together.